glean from just this opening paragraph or opening chapter of the book of Ruth, from the life of Elimelech and the mistakes that he made and the terrible position he put his wife and his two daughters-in-law in. Lesson number one is, in tough times, stay where you are long enough to learn the lesson. Don't run. There's a lesson that's to be learned. Allow the lesson to have its full gestation cycle. In tough times, Elimelech ran, but in tough times, if you're experiencing a tough time, if you're experiencing adversity, get on your knees and ask God to show you how to learn the lesson. Because we know very clearly from the Bible that when you fail to learn the lesson, you take the class over. And most of us are tired of taking classes over. Our attitude, this is not easy, but our attitude should be, God, I want to learn every lesson you have to teach me in this chapter. I want to make it redemptive. I want to be able to draw from this. I don't want to have to repeat this class. I know it's not where I want to be. I know things are tight. I know things have changed. I know my flesh wants to run, but Lord, help me to learn every lesson. If you've been coming here any amount of time, we know all the different characters, starting with our buddy Joseph. He learned every lesson. He redeemed the time so that when he got on top, he was ready. What would have happened had David run from the lions and the bears? How much courage would he really have had to face Goliath? Suppose Esther had said, you know what, I don't feel like these beauty treatments. I don't feel like being mentored by this guy. I'm angry. I'm orphan. No, learn every lesson you can in that chapter. Don't run from it. There's something redemptive. Romans 8:28 says all things work together for good for those who love God. Not all things are good. 1 Thessalonians 5 tells us to give thanks in everything. It doesn't say give thanks for everything. In other words, it's our attitude. Learn every lesson. You watch this, you see this so often in marriages where people don't learn the lesson and they just keep switching partners, and it's the same problem, different face. You see people who don't learn lessons as a single and then they come back to bite them as a married person. Perhaps it's budgeting. Perhaps it's cleaning up. Whatever it is, they don't learn the lesson in one season and then it comes back to bite them. You see people who go from job to job to job to job having problems with their bosses. Now, sometimes I admit it's spiritual warfare, it's attack, it's the enemy inciting them against you, but other times it's flat out that they haven't learned the lesson. There's a person I wouldn't say so near, but at one point they were near and dear to my heart. And it broke my heart because I used to watch this individual and she would repeatedly get herself in trouble. And I could not believe, it was scary. Every new venue, every church, every group, every interaction, sweet as could be, good heart, love the Lord, but she didn't learn the lesson and she kept rubbing people the wrong way. And now she's got a trail of kind of broken relationships. And her heart and her intent was right, but her execution was flawed. You want to make sure you learn the lesson. The enemy, remember, he's not omniscient, but he studies you. So if he can pick up on lessons you don't learn, he's going to keep giving you pop quizzes and you're going to keep getting popped. So if you're going to become a man who matters and you're going to learn how to manage crises, number one, learn how to stay long enough to learn the lesson. Number two, in hard times, keep a godly support system. In hard times, keep a godly support system. Right now, I'm dealing with a situation and my heart is heavy because I can see a person slipping from their support system, and I'm asking the Lord for ways to stay connected with this person. I can see the challenges of life and the difficulties and the disappointments, and hope deferred makes the heart sick. And I can see it, and right now in my spirit, I'm asking the Lord to either send laborers across their path, or for the Holy Spirit to give them a supernatural encouragement, because I can see the individual becoming more and more disconnected, and I've watched this a dozen times. And we know the enemy always isolates before he tries to attack or destroy. Satan goes about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. In the wild kingdom, the lions roar so they can separate the weak from the strong. In hard times, notice what Elimelech did. He left house of bread. He left the church. He left the place that he was hearing God's voice. And because a famine set in, and he went to Moab. If you're going to learn how to manage crises, number one, make sure if there's a lesson to be learned, you're committed to learning it. Humble yourself. Number two, keep a godly support system. This is a war of attrition. If we had a cup of coffee and a lot of time, I could just tell you person after person after person I watch walk in and out of these rooms. Tough times come, season comes, they get isolated, and then they make some decisions they regret. They come to the senses, they come back to church, they come back into the room, they come back to the community. I'm not just saying these four walls, but they leave their spiritual family. They leave people when they look at you who can tell if you're sad. When they look at you, they can give you a hug. Elimelech left the house of bread when the famine set in. If you're going to manage crises, during crises, you need a strong support system. Isn't that what Paul said? Bring John, his last chapter, 2 Timothy chapter 4, he said, bring John Mark. He wanted people to visit him. Why was Jesus so bummed out at the Garden of Gethsemane? He wanted his support system to be there for him in his tough moment. You read in the Gospels how during tough times the disciples fled from Jesus. 1 Samuel 30, you hear the people spoke of stoning David. There's a warfare going on. During a crisis, during a famine, Satan's doing everything he can to try to upset the apple cart. But no matter what's going on, keep a strong, godly support system. Even now, make a list of people. Just take a few seconds and write some names of people you need to connect with, people you need to reach out to, people who encourage you. Number three, if you're going to learn how to manage crises as a man who matters, seek the mind of Christ instead of entertainment or amusement. Seek the mind of Christ instead of entertainment or amusement. The word amuse means not, muse means to think. So when we amuse ourselves, it means we're trying not to think. Nothing wrong with taking a break or a little vacation, but oftentimes we can drown ourselves in internet or TV or mindless conversations. During famines, during crises, we have to seek the mind of God more than amusement. Get in the Word more, listen to more tapes, stay in community more. Read books that encourage you and lift your spirit and lift your soul. Number 4, if you're going to learn how to manage crises, seek godly wisdom and people whose walk you respect.